What do you think would happen if they made taking a rapid debt payoff class a prerequisite for going to law school? Because there's a lot of lawyers who graduate with a lot of debt and then they don't know how to pay it off, right? And if you take a look at the requirements here, really, you need a 4-year bachelor's degree, a strong GPA, and an admissions test score like the LSAT or GRE. And I don't see anything about debt payoff here in the application, personal statement, letters of recommendation, character and fitness disclosure, but nothing about debt payoff. So let me just kind of do a search on this. Law school graduate, actually, do law school graduates struggle with student loans? Yes. About 90% of law, and this is from Harvard. But I like how I just highlighted the first sentence. Yes, they do struggle with student loans. 100 to 150,000. Imagine if every pre-law student just watched these videos before they decide to go to law school. Do you think we could change this number from yes, or change this answer from yes to no, right? So 40 to 52% of young lawyers report postponing the significant life milestones, career constraints, ballooning balances, right? A lot of people doing the income-driven repayment and public service loan forgiveness. But let's just go ahead and pay off our debt as lawyers, and that's what we're going to do today. So what do you think? Do you think that before any law student goes to law school, should videos like this be required viewing? Maybe it might be a good idea. Maybe it might, but who knows? Maybe they want you just to pay all the interest on the loans, right? And get into debt. You know, Call me a conspiracy theorist, but I heard, well, actually I didn't. Well, yeah, I did hear this, that, they love to give the student loans to the law students and the medical students because now it's like a set of golden handcuffs, right? Like you can't, the only jobs that pay like over 200K a year, I think in law are like big law. And so, if you ever heard about the conditions of big law, they they make you work like 100 hours a week. Oh no. I don't know, I'm laughing, but it's that must be really stressful. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. So, here we are as a lawyer making our desired salary of 10 grand a month, and our expenses are 10 grand a month. And we have absolutely left over nothing for this month because if we take a look at our expense breakdown, we see that we have 8 credit cards, an auto loan, a student loan, and a mortgage. And on top of that, our personal expenses that we have to pay for every single month, which is our food, gas, insurance, all the other good stuff that we have to pay for. And we see that as an average lawyer, there's no way out. Could we consider thinking about declaring bankruptcy? Well, that might be a little bit hard because student loans are not bankruptable, right? Like almost every other debt. Actually, that's actually not true. The more I actually learned about bankruptcy, the more I realized that the more money you make, the harder it's actually to do, unless it's like specifically tied to a business. That's what I've heard, right? But I'm not a lawyer, so don't take my word for it. All right. Anyways, all right. So what are we going to do here? Same income, right? Same expenses, but can we increase our cash flow simply by changing the flow of money? And I'm going to tell you with this velocity debt payoff method that we used to call velocity banking until the state of Illinois determined that that was an illegal phrase that you can't use unless you're an actual bank, which is really crazy if you think about it. Because like, what if you had, I don't know, a business called Restaurant Consultants Group, and then like the health department fined you because you're not a restaurant? That would be insane, right? But that's what the state of Illinois said. Can't use the word velocity banking unless you're a bank. And the irony is no bank would actually teach velocity banking to their clients, right? They wouldn't do that. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. I know this is crazy. We're going to deliberately not save money. See, I'm telling you, like the left side and the right side, they look the exact same thing, but the difference is the right side, you're deliberately not saving money, and you would be ashamed if your checking and savings was over zero by the end of the month. And on the left side, you feel Very strange if you don't have any checking and savings. So it's all just a matter of perspective. Why? Because what we're going to do is dump all of our money into something called a line of credit and focus on increasing this thing called cash flow. Okay, cash flow. So the way that we think about cash flow in the average American banking paradigm is that it's income minus expenses minus debt, and whatever's left over in your checking and savings, that's your cash flow. Here, it's just really the amount of debt that we pay off every single month, plus or minus some interest, right? I think it's plus interest. Yeah, I don't know if I'm thinking about the plus or minus, one of them, whatever. All right, so now this is what we're going to do. We're going to assume we have something called a line of credit. So it's a line of credit. It's basically a financial tool where you can borrow money, pay it back, and then use it over and over again. Home equity line of credit, personal line of credit, business line of credit for your business, right? And so what we're going to do is move some debt strategically into the line of credit. And we're going to do that using something called the cash flow index, okay? Now, let me ask you this. If you're broke as a joke, $0 left over, and you have no money, lots of debt, broke as a joke, will the bank give you a free and clear line of credit? Like, will they say, hey, here's another $150,000 you can borrow? The answer to that is no. The answer to that is no. Now, why is it no? It's because banks don't lend money to people who need it, right? Banks don't lend money to people who need it. And that's a lot counterintuitive for a lot of the population, right? A lot of the population gets really surprised by that because the way that the bank works is they market themselves as people who go to banks when they need help, right? And that's not how a bank works. Because if you want to know the inner secrets of a bank, the only reason why they only lend money to people who don't need it is because people who don't need money reliably pay you back. Okay, they reliably pay you back. Yeah, that's why they don't lend money to people who need it. It's kind of the reason why anytime a friend or family member try to borrow money from you, like and they said the magic words, "I need the money," like please let me borrow the money because I need it. That literally meant that they were going to pay you back. The bank knows this because they do a cajillion transactions, you know, every single day, and then they're like, "Oh, okay, like this person said he needs money, and we've been burned a billion times whenever a person told us that. Yeah, we don't do that. We don't do that. Okay, so just remember that. Okay, yes. All right. So now, why do we assume we have a free and clear line of credit? Because it makes a demonstration easier. You'll understand, wow, this line of credit could have been a lifesaver. And then even if you knew the strategy from the beginning, you probably would have never been here, right? And if we do realistic scenarios, I'll be here for 1 hour, 30 minutes. You should see some of the realistic scenarios that I do. It's crazy. And if you want to see it, then join the YouTube channel membership for only 99 cents. Okay. So this is what we're going to do is a cash flow index, right? So basically get the statement balance divided by the monthly payment, right? And we're just going to do that for every single debt. And then basically gives us a debt ranking system. So we pay the low ones off first and then with the high ones off last. So what does the high number mean? Well, it basically means that if you give someone actually, let me rephrase this. You need to give somebody a lot of money to pay off a debt. Okay, that's literally what that means. And you get an itty bitty amount of cash flow. Pay someone lots of debt or repay. You have to repay them back a lot of money just for an itty bitty amount of cash flow. And since we're getting an itty bitty amount of cash flow, well, it's not really going to help us in our debt payoff journey, right? So why don't we just do this, okay? Why don't we just pay these two credit cards with low cash flow indexes, so $65,000 for over $2,000 cash flow versus this $330,000 for $1,500 cash flow. Get more bang for your buck. That's what we're going to do. Okay, so I'm going to just do this 5, 8, 15, 27, 37, 10, 35. I'm going to go ahead and sum it up, and that's $137,000 in debt, $137,000 credit card debt. And what are we doing here? A simple balance transfer. Okay, a simple balance transfer. And what happens when we do that balance transfer? Well, guess what? These payments go to zero. Oopsie, not the auto loan. And then wablam, you literally went from $0 to $4,450.84 without doing anything. Okay, you just had to have a free and clear line of credit that the bank won't give you because banks don't lend money to people who need it, right? Banks don't lend money to people who need it. And when I see all of these law school graduates struggling, and let me just kind of do this, put Reddit, because people post on Reddit, right? How much? Well, just graduated to just graduate law school, now be a slave. Uh-oh. How y'all dealing with crippling student loan debt? Recently graduated lawyer is $300,000 in debt from student loans. Is 75 debt? K in debt and too much for law school? I have 230K from law school. Law, so no, law. Okay. So imagine if they knew the power of this. This is the clickbaity moment that will grab you in, because look at this. Same income, but somehow you got an insanely more, I don't even know if it's grammatically correct, amount of cash flow. Right? Same income, we just shift some expenses, and then now this turns from $0 to $4,450.84. Okay? So now the final step is you're going to dump all your paycheck, this 10 grand, into a line of credit. So think of how many people are out there afraid to put their entire money into debt. All of it. A lot of people are afraid of that. Okay? And then what you do is you take your expenses out and then rinse and repeat over and over again. It's about $4,000. That's the amount that the line of credit debt will decrease after every single month. Okay. And this is what we're going to do. Okay. So let me just show you the formulas right here of how to calculate the next month's balance, which is based on the previous month's balance, previous month's interest minus whatever the cash flow is. So 4450.84. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the average daily balance, right? Multiply by the interest rate and then divide by 12 because it's monthly. Oh, screwed up here. I got to put a period and not a comma. And then again, paycheck in, paycheck in, expenses out. Look how it decreased. Paycheck in, expenses out. Paycheck in, expenses out. You know, it's like wax on, wax off. Wax on, wax off. Danielson. By the way, was anyone else disappointed by like the final seasons of Cobra Kai? I remember when I watched the first season, I was like so impressed by that show because I was able to relate. Like, I'm a failure, you know? And then, you know, I kind of felt like Johnny Lawrence. Maybe I'm past my prime. And by the time it turned into the 6th season of that show, it felt like a parody. It felt like there's a term in television when the characteristics of a character are greatly exaggerated called Flanderization, named after Ned Flanders from The Simpsons. I feel like they did that with Johnny Lawrence. I feel like they took away his character growth rather than smartly incorporate it into the show. They made him dumber throughout the seasons. Yeah. Okay, so let me just kind of go here. And this is going to be month 35, so 35 months, and we paid $137,000 of debt. 35 months, 137K of debt. Okay. And so now we have an auto loan, student loan, and a mortgage. All right. So auto loan, student loan, and a mortgage. And now we got to have accurate figures of what the current balances of these debts are. Right? So we have this loan calculator right here, and we're in month 35. And so you kind of see the current balances of this. Now, why do I have the 7% interest rate in red? It's because I'm going to tell you, if people had 3 loans, all they would see is the interest rate and that's it. They say, I got to tackle the 7%, right? But what we're going to do is tackle the 3. And you might be thinking, that's a little bit crazy because this is the lowest interest rate. Now, if we follow the cash flow index model, this is the lowest cash flow index number. So what does that mean? I pay the 9 grand, I'll get about $400. That's way more effective. Can't even pronounce English. In increasing my cash flow in a short amount of time than this 93 grand for about $1,400. So let's go ahead and pay this sucker off, okay? And get the 400, even though it's the lowest interest rate. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. and then copy and paste, and then this is going to be plus 9568.69. And then you see that it just gets paid off in 2 months, right? But we didn't even increase the cash flow. So let's go ahead and do that by about $395. And now our cash flow is about $4,846 and some change. And then I'm going to go ahead and do that. So for 4846.15.15. And all right. So now we paid the car off in 2 more months. Okay. So that's 37 months. And then that's going to be 137 plus 22. And I see 159K. Okay. And so now we have the student loan and the mortgage. So it's going to be 37 months. So 37. And then now does it be 0? And now we can focus on the 7% loan. Now here's a rule of thumb, right? If you have a low interest rate loan and a high interest rate line of credit, not the best idea to move the loan into a line of credit. Now, the reason why we were comfortable with the 3 is because we had a really low cash flow index, right? So the interest rate was irrelevant when you have a cash flow index that low. But when you have a higher and really big cash flow index numbers, what does that mean? It means that the really high number means you have a big loan with itty bitty amount of cash flow. So with this number where you have a big loan moving from 4 to 8 and only getting itty bitty amount of cash flow, or relatively itty bitty amount of cash flow, then you don't have enough cash flow to offset that big balance. Okay. And that's where a lot of people get tripped up, right? So, but if the interest rate is the same or higher, it's not a big deal. Okay. I'm talking about the loan. Now, this is a 7 and an 8. So it's relatively safe to move this into a line of credit, not the biggest deal, but we might be slightly overpaying a little bit. Okay. So just be aware of that. So let me just kind of do this. 91 grand. It's in Spanish, they call it 91 grando. No, I'm just kidding. 91461.6. Oh man. All right. So now this is 0 student loan. Not only that, cash flows over $6,000. $6,000 is our cash flow. All right. And I'm just going to do this minus 6239.45. And then we see that this student loan got paid off in a couple months, 53 months, we're all paid off. And then I'm going to do this. So, okay, so 159 plus 120. So that's 279K. All right, and then now we have the 30-year mortgage. So let's just do this, 53. Okay. And then now we have $330,000 balance, $302,000 current balance after 53 months. So we have 2 choices, right, to pay off the debt. Number 1, we can just simply do extra payments, right? So we have a monthly payment of $1,500 a month, and we could just directly dump our $6,000 of extra cash flow into the loan as an extra payment. Now, think about this. Most people don't understand, or they intuitively understand that overpaying loans and even credit cards introduces friction to your flow of money, right? I mean, think about, why do you think most people never overpay credit cards? Because if I dump, let's say if I get paid, $4,000 a month and I put the entire $4,000 in a credit card, can I use that credit card to pay a mortgage? Can I use a credit card to pay the other credit card? No. This is why most people will never overpay loans or credit cards. Now, given that this is your final loan, that's not really a problem, but people are hesitant to do that because think about when we first started, how, we had a hesitation about doing that. Now, if you want to just kind of get over this as an alternative, one other way they can do this is using a line of credit to pay off the loan, right? Dumping all your money into the line of credit and then taking your expenses out, rinse and repeat over and over again. Except with very big loans, we're not going to do the whole thing. We're just going to do it in small bite-sized pieces, right? And so, for example, let's say I get $12,000 of the loan, move it to a line of credit. Okay, so I'm just going to show you right here. So plus 12000, and then you see that it got paid off in 2 months, right? This gets paid off even in a month, And then every 2 months or so, we see that it gets paid off, right? And so we're constantly cycling through the line of credit and it's dumping all our paycheck in it. And I would say that this will help you overcome the fear of overpaying a loan, right? And even if it's 8 or 12 or 15%, it's not going to be that big of a deal. Because let me show you right here. These are the numbers. This is the current balance. And we pay this off in 3.5 years and 23 grand of interest. Now, you might be saying, well, what if I can't get an 8%? What if the only thing I get is a 15? 23 grand to 25 grand. So it literally increases 1 grand over that 3.5 years. Okay? So that's kind of, think of it as like a blip on the bank's balance sheet when there's just a 1 grand difference of the amount of interest that you pay, right? So that's that's what we have to think about, right? And even if we did 30, that's still not that much as what you would think, right? Like you could use a 30% credit card. Let's say it has like the best rewards, and then you could probably get like insane amount of rewards points if you're doing $12,000 payments every 1 or 2 months, right? And then think about it. If the bank sees that you're making $12,000 credit card swipes on your mortgage and you use a service like plastique.com or something like that, they're gonna think, dude, this dude is super rich, so we'll give him more credit. Remember, banks don't lend money to people who need it, right? And so, yeah, and here's the other thing what people don't understand. When you move the entire loan into a line of credit, you end up paying more interest than doing a 30% small swipe or sweep or chunk or whatever you want to call it, right? So you do a small chunk of $12,000 and move it into a line. That will cost you less than with a 30% than an 8% moving the entire loan into a line. This is the only way you could screw this up, right? And if you're going to do this, you might as well just do extra payments. You know what I'm saying? Like extra payments will be a lot safer than moving your entire loan into a line of credit. All right. So let me just kind of do this. So 12,000, 8%. And then you see this is 3.5 years, 3.5 years. And I'm just going to do this right here and just type in 53 divided by 12 plus 3.5. So that's 7.92 years debt free. All right. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, what do you think? Do you think this should have been required reading for pre-law school students, pre-law students? What do you think? All right. Okay, well, that's it for today, folks. This is Creating Lantern Mentorship here with another video. If you have an aha moment, just leave a comment below. But I know we got an audience of silent ninjas who love to watch, but maybe they're so shocked about the easy debt payoff that we talk about all the time. Okay, have a great day, and I will see you all in the next video.